really helps to that really helps to center because you get caught up with emotions. It's human nature, right?
Yes. And I think that's the whole point of like this whole week is all about how you don't let the emotions control you. You drive your emotions and use them to be agile and to move and stay in the flow of things, and it comes back to that fact of the law of pure potentiality. I was, before you got on, I was explaining to Stacy in my book, I write about 2 sets of 7 laws and how to use them for selling. So the first set of universal laws are for basically how things work, like how the planets and science and all that stuff. So, but the second set of laws is the laws of spiritual success. And if you think about spiritual success is all about how we're all connected. And the first law says, the law of pure potentiality says that we were born in the image of our creator to create. So we can create anywhere, anytime, anything, and I think a lot of times people forget that because they get caught up in like what is, and the brain isn't going, oh, this means, okay, don't fight, right? Because resistance is everything that holds you back. What can I create out of this? And then how do you use your talents to create? So that's the first one. But there's also a law of detachment, which says don't get attached to anything because you kind of got to flow, because things are going to always be moving, because that kind of ties into basic universal laws like the law of vibration and attraction. And really these spiritual success laws are about how we connect and interact with each other, and the fact they're all based upon the fact we're all connected, we're all one. And if we wake up and realize that, and quit living in our ego, trying to, deal with the inner child. The ego is like our smaller selves that thinks that we have to do or have to prove things to everybody else. And it's like a scared kid that runs around and has to like put up, and say I'm important and all that kind of stuff, and you kind of give that up. But when you're detached, you can be emotionally agile. When you take control of your mind, you can control and direct your emotions for your good. You can take signals from your emotions to say, oh, that doesn't make me feel good. So, okay, I'm going to use that as feedback that maybe I'm going in the wrong direction. So how can I observe what's going on? Why do I feel it? How can I name that feeling? And then what would I like to create and how would I like to feel? And what does that tell me about where I need to move now?
Mhm.
So
yeah, that's really interesting that this is we're having this conversation. The past couple months I've been exercising that discipline, that whole oneness, the oneness vibes.
yeah,
We're all just one. To echo what you're saying and then to elaborate a bit more, it's like you eat the bread, right? You
yeah,
swallow the bread, you have a little
yeah,
part of him inside of you.
yep,
I eat the bread, I have a little part of him inside of me.
yep.
Stacy, you likely eat the bread as well. You have a little part of him in you as well.
I haven't been eating as much, but I
Got it. When you go to church, right? You eat the bread. Everyone eats the bread. It's like just oneness vibes. Oneness vibes.
Yes.
So, and when you go to the gym, you see these little kids with their puff up, puffing up. When in reality, it's like, dude, like we're just one.
Right.
There's no need to emotionally puff up like that. They're super buff, walking around with their pride. I'm like, dude, like we're just one.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's great. And that also ties into like the investment philosophy that we were talking about this week, because in selling, authenticity is an investment, right? But it's being real, like just not putting on all these airs and just being able to talk to people heart to heart. But when you show up authentically and there's no pretentiousness or anything or ego thing floating, you connect with people like and make these powerful connections. And that's what builds business. That's what builds trust, because there's always three composites in a sales process. And the very first one kind of ties into one of the topics for today is your attitude. Like, how do you show up? So your attitude, your composite of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's part of your mindset, and it's the energy composite that you're putting towards something. So it's toward another person, right? So if you are showing up in a high vibe, you're in a high vibe mode, and you show up and your energy towards the customer is all about them and connecting and really quiet. It's not about you. You're like laser focused on them, and you that energy vibe, they're going to get drawn to, just like in a party, right? If you go to a party and, somebody's like the talk of, people are drawn over there to say, what the heck's going on? Because they want that high vibe energy, right? So, but that vibe, the first composite is, do you have a composite and a congruency between your head and your heart as to why you're there and your intention? And if it's true and it's authentic, the customer is going to pick that up for trust, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first composite. And then the second composite is when you sit down and you start asking them questions and you're really genuinely interested, you're going to draw that composite with the person, and you can do, basically state back to them what they said and their opinion of the problem and whether they wanted to do. And they say, oh my God, Alex, man, that guy gets me, And now that's another thing of trust, right? Because and then you two, now that you're trusted and linked heart to heart, you start talking about the possibilities and building the picture of what could be together, right? And you're asking questions and they're asking questions, and you're painting this artist's picture of like this, where are we headed? What's our, what do you want to call it? The new day in the promised land, right? And then the third composite is they have to trust themselves, right, to buy from you. And if they don't trust themselves, where you help them is when you show up with not only attitude, but this strong belief, conviction in your product and belief that the client is going to win, they'll walk across your bridge of belief and take action. So but that's the connection. That's why emotion and that whole agility is so freaking important. Emotional intelligence and agility in sales, because it's all about the oneness that people feel and people buy based upon trust and value. You still have to do the value stuff. You still have to convince them the value, which is why you go in your questioning strategy and you're building value. Because if they say no, it's either trust or value that you didn't build.
Yeah, with the trust, what are some ways you can help build that?
Well, the first thing is you build, like, if you don't have any credibility with them, or if you're new to sales, right, you could build trust by really listening to the other person, saying something back, and then maybe offering some suggestions where they feel that you're more of a resource to them. And so, trust, I think, is really based upon whether they feel you're being congruent and authentic with them or not, right? Mm-hmm. Because haven't you ever had, like, all of us, if you went to go buy a car, or you went into the mall to go buy a stereo system or fill in the blank, sometimes you can get somebody who's just like, wow, that guy really, I felt so good from that reaction. And then there's other times you're like, they start spitting stuff at you and there's no connection there, right? So trust is all about the connection and the authenticity in those composites. To me, that's what builds a trust.
Yeah.
I mean, Stacey, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll never forget the very first time my first sales coach, we sat and talked, and I puked all over him. It was right when I was getting into sales. And he just read me the riot act and said, this is not about you. And it stuck. And I think that comes back to the listening and recognizing you show up and you're possibly in sales going to be solving a problem and you're listening. And if you're talking, for the most part, yeah, there's some bonding that you want to build. People buy from people that they like, trust, and are like them, right? And so if you can relate to them and be authentic, like Rhonda was saying, I think that's half the battle, but I think listening is really important. And I also think there's another, you can tell, especially if you're face to face with somebody, you can even hear it on the phone when you make somebody not okay, which is called the okay, not okay theory. Said something and now he or she is on guard, basically. And so you got to figure out, what was I talking too much? Was I puking on them? What did I say that put up a wall that I got to break down again? So I do think listening and knowing that it's not about us in particular
Right.
will put people at
Bob Proctor used to teach, and he would say, MMFI, make me feel important. And if you have the focus and you ask people about themselves, they'll talk all day long,
And even saying their name over and over again, people like
Right.
to hear their names.
Right.
Okay, if I caught all that: authenticity, listening, and relatability, and is there anything else?
I think, the trust comes one thing is keep your word, your integrity. So if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're not building trust. You build trust. And if you're, especially if you're new and you don't know something, be authentic. I don't know, but I'm going to go find out. And can I call you tomorrow with the answer? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's being pure and authentic as you can be. Faking it is the ego and trying to tell them something and it's half baked, and they're reading right through. They won't tell you that, but they're reading right through you.
It's almost, you can flip it around. In all honesty, when you don't know something, people by nature genuinely want to help other people. And I have a customer in particular that we're growing a nice relationship because he always follows up with, he knows I fall on the sword and I say, listen, if I don't know it, we go seek out the answer. But he always follows up with, let me know if you have any other questions. Like, he wants to help me.
Everyone wants to help. That's a normal.
That's a natural. Yeah. So that's also good when you show I'm human. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything. And people really appreciate you not having that big puffed up ego and said, what else can I do? Do you need anything else? Let me know if you have, Doug always says, let me know if you have any questions, is what he follows up with. And that's the dynamics of our relationship. So I'll play with that,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Does that help, Alex?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'll be exercising that.
Yeah. So Stacy and I were just talking a little bit about, during this week, we were in transitions. We were talking about how to give, like always be giving, right? And why you want to do that, and the subject of reciprocity. So if you give upfront to people to be of service, and we know from day 2 when we talked about, sales are earned, not made. And, same with money is earned, not made. It's all about the service you want to give. And in that spirit of reciprocity and the exchange, you're looking for fit with clients, right? So sometimes there's going to be fit and sometimes there's not going to be fit. So you could think of situations with customers where you really want to get clear on who your ideal customer is and your ideal market. Because sometimes you can get a customer who's going to be a customer that you're not going to want to have, number one. And it's okay to kind of walk from those customers or if it's not a fit in the investigation stage, say, based upon what you're saying, I don't really think that we're the solution for you, and here's why. But I know so-and-so, and you can pass a referral. That kind of reciprocity causes a lot of respect and trust for you long-term. But it's also a subject that we were kind of spitting around on reciprocity, of how important it is to view the world in an investment mentality through the world of reciprocity. Because if you're not getting in the relationship that we have with anyone, we were listening to a podcast yesterday from Mel Robbins, and she was kind of talking about how different people come along in your life and that fill a need. You both have a need, but every version of you every day is a different version of you. And there might be new needs and things that you might have to let go, and you have to kind of flow through the reciprocity. But when you're navigating, like, what's my next move, and having to make some decisions, it's what we got from that podcast was, it's good to look for reciprocity for both people, right? So win-win. How can it be win-win, and not trying to force things or hanging on to things for security blanket reasons, or, up in your head, taking things personally. Sometimes if there's no reciprocity, there's no life in that relationship. So it's okay to move on, which is part of the emotional agility we talked about yesterday. So I don't know if you had any comments or thoughts or questions, Stacy, on that.
It was a lot. I may have to listen to it again. Alex, if you get a chance, her name's Mel Robbins.
Got it. Well, I'm familiar, but I haven't really listened to her podcast. What was the name of her podcast?
This podcast was, I'll tell you one second, because I sent it to Rhonda last night, because I was like, now this was the thing that was exciting, that when things start happening like this authentically and organically, you're getting back into alignment. Like when you pick up the phone and all of a sudden, oh, when is the right time to let go and create a new life? and we've just been on this journey this week. You're starting coming back into where you're supposed to be.
Your source alignment, right?
Yep.
And you're stepping into your power.
Yep. Stepping into my power. So it was called, When is the Right Time to Let Go and Create a New Life?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll note that.
Yeah, it's transitions are, because anybody could get hit with a transition anytime in their career or on their personal life, to be frank. I mean, we're on a planet, I don't know how many, you get 10 chapters of 10 decades, maybe more if you're lucky, but through each chapter, there's going to be those times where, some disruption is going to happen, or you have to make a move. And I just think, if you're looking for your North Star, thinking about your intent, thinking about your purpose, thinking about where you can play to your strengths is all important. Thinking about the environment, we talked about even more yesterday, but also thinking about, from that investment mindset, thinking about reciprocity, because reciprocity is profit for both people. Even when we did the value equations, remember we were looking at the value equations of an employer and what's the value equation for the employee. And I always keep saying, do what you love what you do. You're going to be in a high state of vibration. You're going to be in high vibe. It's going to be effortless because you're playing to your strength, but you get growing your strength and expanding it. And you really want to look for that in the positions and the companies that you're aligning with. But if you're thinking about, is this the right fit, or choosing from 3 or 4 jobs, you have to say to yourself, where do I best align for where I am right now in my journey and what I need, what my intention is for this decade of my life that I'm in, the home life balance thing, everything, whatever it is, and values, but can there be reciprocity in this new relationship? I think is another way to get it real clear as to whether it's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And reciprocity is how nature works, right? I mean, you plant. So what do we have to do? Like think like a gardener. That's in my book, Think Like a Gardener. There's one chapter on gestation, and it's like, okay, so God gives us the great earth, right? But we have to take make the move to plant the garden, right? And we have to put the seed in the ground and we do the work. And then what do? We don't go out the next day after the tomato got planted. We let nature do her work. And, 90 days or whatever the gestation is. Now we've got, not just one, we planted one seed. We got a tomato plant with like 12 or 14 or 16 tomatoes on it, right? So where did that come from? That's nature does her part, but we have to do it, but it's reciprocal, right? Because there's a good old saying that where the priest comes up by the gardener and the guy's on the plow and he says to him, wow, God's really blessed you with this beautiful land, and look at what you've done with it. And he said, yeah, but you should have seen it before I got here. You know what I mean? So what I'm getting at is like, you're the instrument and you're working in reciprocity with your source, right? And you're co-creating. Wow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Understood.
Yeah. So looking for opportunities for reciprocity where both sides can win, I think is a great navigator in your emotional system, and your feelings give you feedback for that.
Yeah. On the North Star, you would say it's mainly purpose, your values, and that mission, and then stay away from the bad emotions that arise as a red flag.
You don't stay away from them, you use them as feedback. So just consider it data. It's almost like, Alex, if you sat in a movie theater, right? If you ever gotten into a good movie and you're like right in it, and you're almost like you're imagining you're in the movie, right? And you could start crying, or you could be really happy, you know what I mean? Like whatever, but you're in the movie. When you have feelings that, when you are directing your emotion, what you're doing is you're sitting back in the observer seat. Like, it's almost like, I'm remembering I'm sitting in the seat, right? Because if you think about what you are, you're not your thoughts, you're not your beliefs, you're not your emotions. You are your awareness, right? And what you're trying to recognize is your oneness with your creator. And the more your awareness grows, the more you're getting aligned with your creator, right? And so, the Nazarene walked on the earth 2,000 years ago, and he was trying to tell us that, right? And so when you can be objective and observe your thoughts, observe your emotions, evaluate your beliefs, then you can channel emotions where you need them to go. So getting to your point about the bad emotion, if you feel bad, that's you saying you're recognizing your vibration is going down. That's what that means, which means instead of your life expanding, it's contracting for some reason. And it's always due to resistance. So if you have a bad emotion, what you consider bad, where you were maybe up on a higher level and all of a sudden you're getting pulled down, or you're feeling like you're getting pulled down, you have to ask yourself, okay, what am I resisting? Right now, what am I thinking about and what am I resisting? Am I thinking about what I don't have? Remember that deficit thing on Maslow's? Am I thinking deficit, or am I thinking growth? Or am I around energy that's pulling me down, right? Because that can happen. It wouldn't have anything to do with maybe your thinking, but you could get yourself into a place where there's a bunch of negative energy and you'd sense it and you would feel bad.
Right.
And again, this is where you have to detach. Like I'm very sensitive to whether I'm going to hang out or where I'm going to spend my time, because I do not want to be in a negative energy field, because energy is a contagion. Think of it like a, COVID running around or something, right? I mean, it's coming at you. It's powerful. So, you have to, that's why you have a guidance system, because it tells you, this is going to hold me, it's like a plant not getting any light. So go get in the light, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Or it's like being out in the water, treading water with weights on your ankles. Just pulling you down.
Mhm.
And when you're getting pulled down, it means your focus is out there. You're not in your center of gravity with your source. You're not in your center with source, because source energy is not pulling you down. It's somebody's inverted thought and that negative energy that's pulling you down. Because abundance is everywhere.
When you say inverted thoughts, what do you mean by that?
Thinking in poverty, scarcity thoughts. So thinking about, what isn't, and a lot of that scarcity. Why do you think it is that only 3% of the population makes the majority of the cash in the world? There's a lot of mental disease on thinking in scarcity thoughts, which means they're thinking about what they do not have instead of what they want and what they do have, right? Because the parable of talents, when Jesus was talking about the parable of talents, and you know the story, right, about the three people, right? The one he gives 10 talents to, he gives 5 to the other, and he gives 1 to the third one. And the guy and he goes away, the master goes away, and he comes back and he says, hey, what did you do with your talents? And the guy with 10 says, hey, master, I took them and I made 20. He was like, great job. And then he goes to the second one and he says, I took my 5 and I got 10. I doubled it. Great job. He goes over to the third guy, and the third guy said, well, I didn't want it to go anywhere while you were gone, so I stuck it under the rug and buried it. Here's the talent back. And immediately he takes the talent and gives it to the guy who made the most, right? Now, why did he do that? Because you have a gift. It's the goodness that you have, and you were meant to use it. And if you don't use the gifts, the moral is, don't use it, you lose it. That's the law of use. So it's everyone has abundance, but everyone doesn't see the abundance that they have, right? Now, yes, there are people that we want to help in other worlds to get education certainly lifts you up, right? Books lift you up. That's getting in environments with people that are doing what you want lifts you up, right? A positive environment. But it's but the reality, truth, capital T truth, is the world's abundant with all kinds of opportunities. And all we have to do is think about what we want and put our strengths to use and make the first move. It's like if you were trying to pick somebody up that you wanted to go date, you can't sit in your room and expect that he or she is going to knock on the door and, come to you. You have to make the first move, right? You have to put yourself to use. You're an instrument for the power, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're the instrument for the power. Our egos think we do the work. We don't do any of the work. That energy is coming to and through us. All we're doing is being an instrument for the power. And the greater the instrument is, and the more open we get, and the less constriction we have, the more energy is going to flow, and the more things are going to become easier to achieve, as you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of how the growth schedule. Does that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of elements to that. That's for sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go off, but I get so excited about some of this stuff sometimes.
Well, and it even thinks of like the law of scarcity is also like when you think about gratitude, you should be grateful even at your lowest times, because gratitude grows and expands. It's like you shouldn't focus on what you don't have, focus on what you have and build from that, right? In moments of when you don't feel like you should be grateful, I feel like it also applies to scarcity and money. Don't be afraid to give up that talent. Give it, and watch it come back, tenfold, or whatever fold it did for the others.
Give whatever you have at the time too. I mean, if you have some, it's the parable of, on the money thing. I mean, look what Jesus said when he was watching, and that one woman put the penny in, and everybody was making fun of well, that was only a penny. And he said, that's more than all of you given, because that's all she had. Give what you have. Right.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe not give it all away.
Well, yeah, but you know, you, if you want something, give it. But you know, when we were going through the thing this week, I talked about the ace pit, bring your ace to the game, your ace pitcher, you know, appreciation. There's all kinds of, you have spiritual, mental, and physical things to give to people, not just one, right? So you can give empathy to somebody, you give appreciation, you can give somebody their attention. Sales reps that know that there's two ears and fully zone on their customers win them every time, because they can feel that you're paying attention to them. And then when you really listen and you can recite that back to them and they say, oh my God, he or she really gets me, man, boom, you're right in where your power of suggestion. Now they've opened up their reticular activating system, right? Because suggestion is the most powerful thing in the world. And when you're selling for people and you're actually serving them, what you can have that suggestion, and that's your persuasion skills are trying to help that person get across the bridge to their transformation.
Mhm.
So cool.
I think also, like, in line with that too, sometimes when you say, it's how you word things with a prospect or whatever, like, not sure if this makes sense or does this make sense, then you have that agreement, because sometimes they'll repeat back to you, yeah, that does make sense. And
you guys
then
know the way, there's only 3 ways where you can get that reticulating activating system open. If somebody has a closed mind when you're selling, do you know what those are?
tell us.
Well, you just said one.
Does it make sense? Agreement,
Two is
trust.
fascination.
Okay. Curiosity.
And the third one, shock.
Shock. Okay.
So shock, sometimes you have to tell somebody, you have to be direct, honest, and loving with someone and tell them something that they don't know. And that takes courage. But that may be the only way that you're going to help that person, because if they keep their mind shut, they're going to stay stuck where they are. And wouldn't that be a thing? I mean, when you really start thinking about your job is to make sure that that person doesn't stay stuck and to really help them, you'll be willing to do, you know, agreement, fascination, or shock to make sure that if you really know it's a fit, that's your responsibility, is to get that person across that bridge. And if you take it seriously like that, you're picking up the attitude of a pro, and you're gonna start really excelling. Because you have, every single human being, Alex, has free will. Well, when in the Genesis, dominion over the world, what did that mean? You have the ability to think and create, and you have the ability to accept and reject ideas, because you have that, the accept reject is your free will. And inverted thinking is nothing more than going in the wrong direction. So the way I explain it to the kids in preschool, I teach CCD in the fall. I say, look, guys, what happened in the Garden of Eden? Oh, okay. Adam and Eve were, you know, eating the whatever, saw the apple, or were eating the apples or something, and the snake comes by and says, you know, go, you can go over to that tree too and eat those apples, and you know, you won't even need God anymore, right? So they go over and eat the apple, and then all of a sudden, you know what happens after that? Well, what did they do? They went in the wrong direction, because they turned away from source energy instead of towards it, right? And so that's inverted energy, is when we're going away from remembering that we're here for a purpose. We have our strengths, we have our gifts. We're supposed to share them abundantly with everyone we have, with everyone we can, you know what I mean? And when we do that and there's reciprocity, we create more and more life, which is what source energy wants, right? It's where the life is. So do you go towards the life, or are you going backwards, inverted energy, and thinking about what you don't have, or you're turning away from source energy and what you're supposed to be doing, and you're going in the wrong direction?
Could you elaborate a bit more on source energy?
When I say source energy is alignment with God, I call source energy, infinite intelligence, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing, right? So but it's how you get your energy. And as an instrument, like if you think about a light bulb, right? You can be a 40-watt light bulb, or you could be a 60-watt light bulb. So you could put the bulbs, when you put the 40 in, you only get 40 amps of light. You put the 100 in, you get 100. Your job as the instrument is to expand. So to go from like 40 to 100 to 200 to whatever with awareness. And as you expand that awareness, you're aligning more and more. Because why? Because you're getting more and more source energy coming to and through you. And you're in alignment with where source energy wants to go, which is why in my book, Following Universal Law, if you're in alignment with life, what's spirit, life, love, harmony, joy, all that kind of stuff. And you can get into the spirit of selling or the spirit of whatever, and you're in alignment with it, you're going to flow. But when you're going against it, thinking like you're an ego and you think you're the ocean and you're one wave in the ocean, and you're not realizing, it's all connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're fighting against it. And the resistance is going to be high. And sometimes you're going to get knocked on your butt, just like a big, wave coming in. You're going to get knocked down because you can't resist that. You want to go with the flow, not against it.
Got it. Okay. So if I caught all of that, source energy, it's really the good emotions, right? Like your love, oneness, your gratitude, following that space. And anything like pride, ego, hate, stay away from that. Then just follow that source energy is what you're describing.
Yeah, it's the higher energy, right? And the line, the hate and whatever, the problem with that, why people are having those emotions, they're inverted. They're thinking about what they don't have. They don't believe in source energy. They don't believe it. They think they are like this entity in this world alone. They haven't they haven't got the awareness, unfortunately, how we're all connected, which is how kind of we started this conversation this morning, right? They don't have that awareness. And so they're acting as if they're on an island by themselves. And so they're making decisions, and then they see scarcity. I have a chapter in my book that says you got to get the book if you don't have the book. Because it'll explain it deeper, but it says, do you believe in an infinite power or a finite power? And if you believe in a finite power, you believe you are the power and you've got to do everything, and you can't rely on source energy for anything. And I was there, man. I used to do it. I used to think God was somebody up there that didn't need to be bothered. Not that I didn't believe he was there, but I said, well, I'm not going to bother him for anything. I got to do everything myself. Boy, was that a mistake, because I was working hard. I was in effort. I was doing a lot of things thinking I had to do, I was the it that was doing it. Wasn't until I realized that all I have to do, my only responsibility as an instrument is to think about what I want, keep that monochromic fixture on what I want, see it, believe and have the faith that it is coming to me. It may take longer than I want. It may not show up on time in the garage or whatever when I want it to, but it's coming, because that's all I'm thinking about. And I'm taking action, and I'm saying to source, hey, I'm out there doing my part. I did this, this, and this. What else do you want me to do? I'm listening to my intuition, and I'm calm because I've done it enough times to know that most of the time what source has planned for me is bigger and better than whatever I thought it was going to be. And it just ain't time yet.
Right.
The gestation thing has to kick in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Doesn't it also, Rhonda, kind of goes back to one of our conversations that we've had, is that like fear and faith can't stay in the same place.
That's right. That's absolutely
So
right.
which one are you going to feed? Are you going to feed the fear of, or are you going to have the faith or belief in the source? And I think sometimes we get in the way of the source because we think we need to hold on to everything and take control. and not just let go.
And we also sometimes don't believe in ourselves.
Right.
So you
For
have
sure.
to have two. You have to, this is two energies. You have to believe in you. You
Ugh.
have to believe the source is right there with you and you're in it together.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, Stacey. On my whiteboard, I literally have faith over fear.
Ah, nice. Look at
Yeah,
we're closing this out though, not closing it out, but we're connecting it all as it should be, right?
yeah. And Rhonda, might be just me, but you play with your physiology a lot. You know, you kind of feel yourself out. You work with your intuition. Anything on the heart, when you feel something like in your heart as a source, I'm trying to figure out, you know, those little hunches that come around, how I
Yeah.
can optimize. There's like, I feel like when I want to connect with someone, it's like something happens in my heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm.
So your heart is the center of that. That's you're feeling your subconscious mind, right? So your heart is where your soul connects. You know, you're a spiritual being, and you're 90% of you is invisible, right? Because like we said, it's your awareness, but the heart is what connects everybody to everything, because we're all connected through the subconscious mind. So when you get the feelings from the heart, you're going to get a couple things from the heart. One is the desires that you get come from source, subconscious mind, and they go up to your intellect, right? And then source energy says, I gave them free will. So you get to either accept those ideas or reject them. Some people over time, you know, when they have a desire, if the standard, this was one of the topics for today, standard is basically the line you draw, like of what you're going to accept or deal with, and what you tolerate will perpetuate, right? So your standard might kick that out, but you are getting desires coming to you all the time for you to move, right? Because source wants you to move. We're not sitting still. We're always moving, right? He's got the planets moving. Everything's moving. The law of vibration says everything's in a state of movement. So source wants you to be moving towards something. So those desires, when they come up, they're designed for you, and you wouldn't get them if you didn't have the strengths and the capabilities to go acquire them. So don't ignore those. Like if you get a desire, if you're trying to connect at your heart, or you're feeling something with your heart, that's part of your passion and purpose. It's leading you. Your heart is always trying to lead you where you need to go. That's your emotional guidance system, right? It's through your subconscious mind that you feel. And we all feel and speak the law of vibration. So when your heart is telling you to do something, so your God sends you ideas for your desire, but it also sends you feedback to your prayers through your intuition. And that's that feeling, you know, you feel it in your heart. Sometimes people say they feel it in their gut, but if your heart's centered, you're caring about something means something for that navigation. So I don't know if you have an example or something that you wanted to kind of clear in your head that I could help you with.
It was really interesting, but I just like, I feel just kind of like a feeling in my heart. And just randomly, I was on a walk just randomly. And literally, this might sound weird, but I'll just say it because I feel like I can. But it's like, if you want to connect with me, if you want to listen to me, just calm down and feel your heart. Like,
Yeah.
that's like,
well, it's exactly the way he works, right? Because source energy is all vibration. It's energy. It's not speaking, you know, he's not going to speak to you in words.
mm-hmm. Right.
Right. And when you listen to your heart will guide you and take you where you're supposed to go. And you don't want to have, and you've got to, one of the reasons why, you know, Jesus always talked about forgiveness and letting go is you want to keep that heart open. A lot of people, what happens is their heart's closed, like the Tin Man, and they're frozen, and they can't they can't get any feedback, and they sure as heck can't connect with anybody else. And that's sometimes why they go on an island.
Right.
Mm.
And again, if you have your agility and your emotional intelligence, you won't hold on to a heartbreak. You'll feel it, you'll label it, and then you have to forgive and let it go and look for the good, that there's some lesson that you learned, something you got out of it. Look for the good and then let go of the rest and keep moving. And and listen to that heart and say, guide me, heart. And your vibrations guide you. Either the vibrations are going up or the vibrations are going down. If they're going up, there's life there and you're on your right track. You're in the right direction. If the vibrations are going down, you're heading away from the source energy, or away from the sun, if you will, right? You're getting into the dark. You're going in the wrong way. Figure out why you're going in the wrong way and turn yourself around.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So just to wrap up, I think this was a fun week on transitions. Would you agree? I had a good time. I hope everybody else and everybody online is having a good time with this. And all of you have gotten information. If you want any more assistance from me in terms of even a one-on-one call on your next move, if you're struggling, I do have, coaching services that I provide. If you're interested in those, get in contact with me. And I just hope that, from the week that you've gotten, some real good insights. And I'll go back to our transition. It's like there's endings, there's middles, neutral zones, and then there's new beginnings. And it's never going to stop, and it's always going to keep coming. And it's really, if you can apply some of the things that we talked about this week, that reciprocity, the guidance system, the agility, feeling your emotions, labeling them, using them as data to guide you, and following your heart, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing. Our heart is, how we all connect together in our subconscious mind, and our heart is trying to tell us where to go, because source energy wants to co-create with you and make this an incredible journey. So I'll just end it saying namaste, and I hope to be in touch with you later on. Okay. And have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rhonda. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Have a great weekend, Stacey.
See ya. Thanks for the participation. It was a great call.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.